Late-night television was rocked when an innocent promotional appearance turned into an explosive confrontation between Jimmy Kimmel and Pedro Pascal. What started as standard talk show banter quickly descended into one of the most uncomfortable moments in recent television history, exposing the host's apparent contempt for his guest and shocking viewers nationwide. The tension was palpable from the moment Pedro Pascal walked onto the set of Jimmy Kimmel Live. The acclaimed actor, known for his roles in The Mandalorian and The Last of Us, was there to promote his latest project, a psychological thriller where he plays a journalist uncovering corruption in the entertainment industry. The irony of what was about to unfold couldn't have been more striking. Kimmel's demeanor seemed off from the beginning. His introduction of Pascal was noticeably curt, lacking the enthusiastic welcome usually afforded to stars of Pascal's caliber. The studio audience, initially energetic, grew uncomfortably quiet as they sensed the host's unusual coldness. "So, Pedro, you've been everywhere lately," Kimmel began, his tone carrying an undercurrent of irritation rather than the playful banter viewers had come to expect. "The Mandalorian, The Last of Us, and now this film where you're supposedly exposing the dark side of entertainment. Seems like you're really enjoying pointing fingers at the industry that made you famous." Pascal shifted in his seat, visibly taken aback by the hostile opening. Always the professional, he attempted to redirect the conversation. "Well, it's fiction, Jimmy. But what drew me to the role was the character's commitment to truth, even when it's uncomfortable." "Truth," Kimmel interrupted with a dismissive laugh. "That's rich coming from someone who makes a living pretending to be other people. Tell me, where do you draw the line between acting and hypocrisy?" The audience gasped. Pascal's expression flickered between confusion and mounting anger. The camera caught several audience members exchanging shocked glances. "I'm not sure what you're getting at, Jimmy," Pascal responded, his voice steady despite the provocation. "Is there something specific about my work or this film that's bothering you?" "Nothing specific," Kimmel replied with feigned innocence that fooled no one. "I just find it interesting how actors love to position themselves as moral authorities while living in their privileged bubbles. Your character is exposing corruption? Maybe we should talk about how projects get greenlit in Hollywood. I hear interesting stories about how you landed some of your roles." The insinuation hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Pascal sat up straighter, his jaw visibly tightening. "If you have something to say, Jimmy, why don't you just say it directly instead of hiding behind vague implications?" Pascal challenged, his Chilean accent becoming more pronounced as his anger rose. The production team could be seen frantically signaling from off-camera, clearly trying to steer the interview back to safer ground. Kimmel ignored them. "Let's talk about your co-star in this film." Kimmel pivoted abruptly, though his tone remained antagonistic. "I understand you two had some creative differences during filming. Care to elaborate on that?" "That's not true at all," Pascal replied, increasingly bewildered by the host's antagonism. "Our set was one of the most collaborative and respectful environments I've worked in. Unlike what I'm experiencing right now." The audience erupted in a mixture of awkward laughter and supportive applause for Pascal. Kimmel's face reddened, but instead of backing down, he doubled down. "Respectful? That's not what I heard," Kimmel said, shuffling his note cards performatively. "In fact, I have it on good authority that you were difficult on set, constantly demanding script changes and special treatment." Pascal looked directly into the camera, then back at Kimmel. "Jimmy, I don't know where you're getting your information, but it's completely false. Are you doing this for ratings? Is attacking guests your new strategy to stay relevant?" The camera caught several audience members covering their mouths in shock. The tension in the studio was now thick enough to cut with a knife. Guillermo, Kimmel's sidekick, could be seen looking uncomfortable at his podium, clearly uncertain whether to intervene. "I'm just asking questions that people want answered," Kimmel retorted, his voice rising. "That's my job as a host. Maybe You've been behind that Mandalorian helmet too long to remember how interviews work. Pascal took a deep breath before responding. I've done hundreds of interviews, Jimmy. This isn't an interview, it's an ambush. And honestly, I'm wondering, why? Did I offend you somehow? Is this personal? The commercial break couldn't come soon enough. As the "We'll be right back" jingle played, cameras caught Kimmel and Pascal continuing their heated exchange, with production staff rushing onto the stage. Social media was already exploding with clips of the confrontation, with Kimmel vs. Pascal trending within minutes. When the show returned from break, the atmosphere had changed from tense to explosive. Pascal had removed his microphone and was standing up, apparently ready to leave. "Sit down. We're not finished," Kimmel said, his professional mask slipping completely now. "You agreed to this interview." "I agreed to promote my film, not to be insulted and have my integrity questioned based on rumors and lies," Pascal responded, his voice cold with barely contained fury. "I think we're done here." What happened next would become one of the most shocking moments in late-night television history. "You know what, Jimmy?" Pascal said, his voice suddenly calm but vibrating with intensity. "I'll stay, but only because I want to understand what's really happening here. The viewers deserve to know why you're treating a guest this way." Pascal sat back down, a decision that sent the live audience into surprised applause. Kimmel's expression flickered with momentary uncertainty. He clearly hadn't expected Pascal to call his bluff. "There's nothing to understand," Kimmel retorted, shuffling his cards again in what was becoming a nervous tic. "I'm just asking the questions others are too afraid to ask. Like how you managed to land 3 major franchises back-to-back when better actors have been overlooked." The camera caught a producer making a slashing motion across her throat, signaling to cut or change direction, but Kimmel either didn't see or deliberately ignored it. "Better actors?" Pascal repeated, his eyebrows rising. "That's subjective, Jimmy, but what's not subjective is that I auditioned and worked hard for every role I've gotten. What's your real problem with me?" The audience was completely silent now, witnessing something unprecedented. This wasn't the playful celebrity banter they'd come to expect. This was raw, uncomfortable, and utterly compelling television. "My problem," Kimmel said, leaning forward, "is the hypocrisy. You're here promoting a film about exposing corruption while benefiting from a system that—" "That what?" Pascal interrupted, his patience clearly exhausted. "Say it plainly, Jimmy. What exactly are you accusing me of?" A production assistant hurried on stage with water for both men, a transparent attempt to diffuse the situation. Pascal ignored the water. Kimmel took a long sip, seemingly to buy time. "I'm not accusing you of anything," Kimmel finally said, his tone shifting to something more defensive. "I'm just pointing out the irony." "No, you were making insinuations about how I got my roles," Pascal corrected him. "And I want to know why. Is it because of the comments I made about late-night television in that interview last month?" The audience let out a collective, "Oh," suddenly understanding that there might be a personal grudge at play. Kimmel's face darkened. "You mean when you said late-night hosts were becoming increasingly desperate for relevance in a dying format?" Kimmel shot back. "Why would that bother me?" The tension crackled visibly between them as the true source of the animosity was finally revealed. Pascal had apparently criticized the late-night format in a recent interview, and Kimmel, taking it personally, had decided to ambush him on live television. "That comment wasn't directed at you specifically," Pascal explained, though his tone suggested he now might reconsider that exception. "It was an observation about the industry's evolution. But your reaction tonight is proving my point better than my words ever could." The audience erupted in a mixture of oohs and spontaneous applause. Someone in the back even shouted, "He's right," which was picked up by the microphones. Kimmel's face flushed crimson. "Let's get back to your film," he said, clearly trying to regain control of the interview. Your character exposes a major talk show host who abuses his platform to settle personal scores. Pascal finished for him, looking pointedly at Kimmel. The parallel isn't lost on me. Art imitating life, apparently. The studio was so quiet you could hear the hum of the equipment. Kimmel's producer was now standing just off camera, gesturing frantically. The show needed to cut to another commercial break, but neither man was backing down. "That's rich," Kimmel said with a forced laugh that didn't reach his eyes. "Next, you'll be telling me you predicted this whole interaction." "I didn't need to predict it," Pascal responded coolly. "Your reputation preceded you. Multiple actors have warned me about your interview tactics, but I came anyway. I believed in giving people the benefit of the doubt." "My reputation?" Kimmel's voice rose an octave. "What about the stories I've heard about your behavior on set? The tantrums when you don't get your way? The demands for script changes? Those are lies, Jimmy, and you know it," Pascal said, leaning forward now. "You can check with any director or crew member I've worked with. What you're doing now, spreading falsehoods on air, that's actually something you could be sued for. It's called defamation." The word "sued" hung in the air like a thunderclap. The audience gasped. Kimmel's producer was now frantically signaling for a commercial break, which finally began rolling. During the break, cameras that were still running for internal footage captured Pascal standing up again, this time approached by several producers, who seemed to be attempting to mediate. Kimmel remained seated, speaking animatedly with his own team. The tension on set was palpable, with crew members looking uncertain about whether the interview would or could continue. When the show returned from the commercial break, both men were still there, but the atmosphere had shifted yet again. Pascal had removed his suit jacket, as if preparing for a longer confrontation. Kimmel's usual smirk had been replaced by a grim determination. "Welcome back," Kimmel said, his voice noticeably strained. "Before the break, we were discussing Pedro Pascal's new film." "No, Jimmy," Pascal interrupted immediately. "Before the break, you were making false accusations about my professional conduct, and I was defending my reputation. Let's not pretend. This is a normal interview anymore." Kimmel's eye twitched visibly. "Fine. You want to do this? Let's do this. The real reason I brought up those rumors is because—" Suddenly, the audience gasped as someone unexpected walked onto the set. It was a face familiar to everyone in the entertainment industry, and their arrival threatened to turn this already explosive situation into something far more damaging for Kimmel's career. Matt Damon strode confidently toward the interview area. The audience erupted in surprised applause and cheers as Kimmel's longtime nemesis approached, though tonight the playful rivalry they had cultivated for years took on a decidedly serious tone. "Matt, what are you doing here?" Kimmel asked, his voice betraying genuine shock. "This wasn't part of any planned bit." "I was backstage for my segment," Damon replied calmly, pulling up a chair between Pascal and Kimmel. "But after watching what's happening, I felt I needed to step in." He turned to Pascal with a respectful nod before fixing his gaze on Kimmel. "Jimmy, this has gone too far." The audience fell silent again, hanging on every word of this unprecedented confrontation. Damon, despite his joking feud with Kimmel, had never before interrupted another guest's segment like this. "This isn't your concern, Matt," Kimmel said, attempting to regain control of the situation, though his voice lacked conviction. "It actually is," Damon countered firmly. "Pedro is a colleague who deserves respect, and more importantly, I was there when you two spoke at the charity event last month. I heard what he actually said about late-night television." Pascal looked surprised at this revelation, while Kimmel's expression froze. "Pedro was specifically praising you, Jimmy," Damon continued, "for evolving the format. His comment about hosts desperate for relevance was aimed at those resorting to clickbait controversies and manufactured drama." Damon paused meaningfully. "Exactly like what you're doing tonight." The audience reacted with audible murmurs as this context changed everything. Kimmel's ambush was based on not just a misunderstanding, but a complete misrepresentation of Pascal's words. "Is that true?" Pascal asked, looking directly at Kimmel. "You took my comments out of context deliberately?" Kimmel shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The cameras caught the silent communication between his producer and director. This had spiraled beyond their control. "I may have misinterpreted what I heard," Kimmel finally admitted, though his tone suggested minimal contrition. "You didn't misinterpret anything," Damon pressed. "You were shown a deliberately edited clip by someone with an agenda." He turned to Pascal. "The same person who's been spreading those false rumors about your on-set behavior." The pieces suddenly fell into place as understanding dawned on Pascal's face. "Jeffrey Martin," he said quietly. Kimmel's expression confirmed it instantly. Jeffrey Martin, a notorious producer known for holding grudges against actors who turned down his projects, had apparently fed Kimmel manipulated information to orchestrate this public takedown of Pascal. "He showed me footage," Kimmel admitted reluctantly. "And emails. They seemed legitimate." "Let me guess," Pascal said, his anger now redirected. "This happened right after I declined his offer to star in his next film?" The audience was witnessing something extraordinary, the real-time exposure of an industry power play gone wrong. Kimmel had unwittingly become a pawn in someone else's vendetta. "Jimmy," Damon said, "you've built your reputation on being better than this, on seeing through the BS in our industry, not perpetuating it." For the first time that evening, Kimmel looked genuinely remorseful. The realization that he'd been manipulated into attacking an innocent guest on false pretenses visibly sank in. "I should have verified the information," Kimmel conceded, his shoulders slumping slightly. "That's on me." Pascal studied him for a long moment. "Yes, it is. You have a platform and a responsibility that comes with it." An uncomfortable silence filled the studio as the three men sat in this moment of truth. The audience, aware they were witnessing something raw and unscripted, remained captivated. Finally, Kimmel straightened his posture and did something few had ever seen him do on air. He offered a genuine apology. "Pedro, I'm sorry," he said, looking directly at Pascal. "I should have approached you privately if I had concerns. Blindsiding you publicly was wrong, regardless of what I believed to be true." Pascal nodded, acknowledging the apology without immediately accepting it. Journalism, even entertainment journalism, requires due diligence. You skipped that step. Tonight. "He did," Damon agreed. "But owning that mistake publicly takes courage." He looked between the two men. "Maybe there's something constructive that can come from this." Pascal considered this for a moment. "Your new film actually addresses this exact issue, how easily misinformation spreads and damages reputations in the digital age," he said to Kimmel. "Maybe instead of promoting my project, we have a real conversation about that?" The audience applauded spontaneously at this suggestion. What had begun as a hostile ambush was transforming into something potentially meaningful. "I'd like that," Kimmel agreed, visibly relieved at the opportunity for redemption. "And I think our viewers would too." What followed was 20 minutes of the most honest conversation ever broadcast on late-night television. Pascal, Damon, and Kimmel discussed the dangers of accepting information at face value, the responsibility that comes with public platforms, and the toxic dynamics that sometimes plague the entertainment industry. As the segment neared its end, Pascal delivered a final thought that would be quoted across social media for weeks to come. "The most dangerous lies are the ones that exploit our pre-existing biases. We're all susceptible to believing what confirms what we already think we know." The show concluded with a surprising gesture, Kimmel handing his own microphone to Pascal. "Last word should be yours," he said simply. Pascal looked directly into the camera. "Verify before you vilify," he said. "In entertainment, journalism, social media, everywhere. That's how we build a culture based on truth rather than sensation." The audience rose in a standing ovation as credits began to roll. Backstage footage later leaked showing the three men continuing their conversation, with Kimmel making a call to directly confront Jeffrey Martin about his deception. By morning, the segment had gone viral, with "Shatker verify before vilify" trending nationwide. Industry insiders began speaking out about Martin's history of manipulation, leading to a broader conversation about power dynamics in Hollywood. For Kimmel, the night represented both a low point and an opportunity for growth. His ratings initially dipped as viewers reacted to his ambush tactics, but his willingness to own his mistake and pivot to a meaningful discussion ultimately earned him respect. As for Pascal, his composure under pressure and willingness to transform conflict into dialogue enhanced his already sterling reputation. His film, with its themes of truth and accountability in media, opened to record numbers the following weekend. What began as one of late-night television's most uncomfortable confrontations ended as one of its most powerful moments of authenticity. A reminder that even in entertainment, truth and integrity still matter.